That's good.
Yeah, right.
Hey, this is me. Mr. Malloy. You need to cowboy. Getting ready. When do you want to go?
When do you want to go?
We're going to go right now. 30 seconds. I'll point in.
30 seconds will start. You're going to wait for the live feed on the radio.
Bob, you seen Peter yet?
No.
Peter Orange?
No, someone said he was call. Where is? Oh, there he is. Oh,
Yeah.
how's he doing, you think?
Good. Yeah. Yeah, as good as he, probably
Yeah.
as good as he would ever expect to be. So.
It's great. Got less hair.
Well, it's only two directions.
Good evening. Welcome to the Chamber of Commerce Mayor Forum. And tonight's forum, the setup is going to be that the candidates will open with a 3-minute opening, and they'll also have a 3-minute time limit on closing. And the members of the press, we have KMCD Radio here with us. We have the Fairfield Ledger and the Ottumwa Courier are going to ask questions of you, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer the question, up to 2 minutes. Bob Phipps is the timekeeper, and he will let you know when you're getting close to the time limit. We also have KTVO television here with us tonight, and FPAC Channel 9. So with that, I would like to begin with our 3-minute opening statements. We'll begin with Ed Malloy. Also remember, we are live on the radio, so when you speak at any time and answer questions, state your name.
Good evening, Ed Malloy. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for providing the opportunity to focus on the fine points of what is at stake in Fairfield's election on Tuesday for mayor. We have a rare opportunity to focus on just one race for our highest office, and the 3 candidates well represent what is at stake. I believe Fairfield is at a crossroads at this time. There are many signs that we are in a decline. Our city has lost 3 to 4% of its population during the last decade, while the state grew by 5%, and the rest of the Midwest grew by an average of 8 to 9%. We lost 2 major employers in the last year, Meritor and USA Global Link, accounting for hundreds of jobs. We have between 250 and 300 homes for sale on our market. We have many vacant buildings, apartments. Our town square is uninspiring. Our unemployment rate is the highest it's been in a decade. Yet we still have a community that is the envy of the rest of Iowa because we have the ingredients to make a community thrive. Good schools, good churches, good services, a broad business base, a strong workforce, cultural diversity, institution of higher learning, strong volunteer spirit, and great young people. The challenge of a leader is to bring these things and these ingredients together to make them work for betterment and growth. That is where I propose we start to address our challenges by building on our strengths, recognizing our potential, and planning for our future. This requires a strong commitment from a leader and from its citizens. 1 year ago, Governor Vilsack released a strategic plan, Iowa 2010, that defines the building blocks for a strong future of our state. It was endorsed by the Iowa League of Cities for its vision and comprehensive recommendations for cities to chart their future. But the decline is taking place all over Iowa, and we must address it now. Several cities have wisely taken up the charge from the governor to begin the planning process, like Mason City, whose strategic plan was unveiled this past June. Many Iowa cities don't have the head start that Fairfield has, but if we don't take stock in the ingredients we have now, we will squander the opportunity to grow and prepare ourselves for the next generations. We can send a message to our young people in Fairfield that Fairfield is going to grow and change with the times, and that our community will be good for them and for their children. If we don't, we'll follow the negative trends that are upon us. I'm running for the office of mayor because I believe that new leadership is essential, and I'm prepared and committed to working with everyone in our community, our city council, our city employees, our manufacturers, our small businesses, our teachers, our religious leaders, our service organizations, and most especially our young people to build a Fairfield we're all proud of.
Thank you. Caleb Flynn.
So there's some things that need to happen in Fairfield. We all know that. So, as mayor, what I do is be approachable and just be able to be open with people and have them give me input, but at the same time, be able to sort through that and see what is needed. And, with Ed and Bob, they're from a generation that I'm not. I think differently than them. That's known. The kids know that we think differently than people of the older generation, and that's cool. It's a different mentality, and we're gonna change things, and that's the way it's gonna happen, and we can do it now. We can start and just be open to new ideas.
Bob Rasmussen.
I'm Bob Rasmussen. Thank you for the opportunity again tonight from the Chamber to discuss some of the issues which are facing our community. Many individuals probably have either asked me or wondered why I continue to be interested in the City of Fairfield and in Fairfield government. Many years ago, I chose an interest in municipal government when I began attending League of Municipality meetings and eventually serving as the League state president. In 1972, I left Parsons College to become a field representative for the Iowa League of Cities, a position I held for over 25 years. And during that time, I traveled throughout the state working with other city officials and staff members in conducting their business. I taught workshops, wrote ordinances, trained clerks and elected officials, and became quite knowledgeable, certainly, in city budgeting and city government operations. When I became Fairfield's mayor, I was already familiar with city business and felt I had made many contacts that would help our city, and it did. I worked on grants when appropriate. I learned to watch budgets closely so that taxes remained under control at all times, and I learned how to work with the city council in handling citywide legislative issues. As a result, over these years, city government in Fairfield has been consistently fair and progressive. We have built countless infrastructure facilities during my tenure, including a new water plant, a new wastewater treatment plant, several housing subdivisions, we began a park and recreation department, an indoor swimming pool. We purchased and developed a recreation center, redesigned Central Park. We erected a law enforcement center, and we certainly worked with a lot of streets and street improvements and street infrastructures. But change is ever present, and we continue to look ahead with resources that we have available here in Fairfield. Right now, we have a $7 million waterworks improvement plan, which is underway to meet updated federal and state standards. We're in the middle of that right now. We are facing changing traffic patterns with a bypass on Highway 34 being constructed around the southern part of the city. And with it comes zoning and annexation concerns, which I think I can handle. The emergence of the Civic Center proposal to serve as a foundation for downtown reconstruction also invites government attention. The use of our water resources at Ponds 1 and 2 and Walton Lake for recreational purposes need to be carefully looked at. And certainly, which I feel I have a lot of experience and I think we're going to need it, the tight financial situation in terms of the loss of road use tax, reduced valuations in property, in general, less money coming in to try to operate the city and provide those same services that we always had. We have to look at creative ways to stretch the dollar. Trying to compromise the goals of two communities within one city is not an easy task. But through these years, I believe I've tried to look at both and have worked to bring about compromise in the many issues we face. And at this time, I would say that I'm willing to continue to work and see what we can to continue to move Fairfield ahead. Thank you.
Now we'll start with questions. We'll start with Jean.
Jean Greco from the Ottumwa Courier. This is for all candidates, and the mayor just made reference to the fact that the city is underway with a new water treatment plant. If you could please summarize what exactly went wrong and why we are spending $7 million to upgrade the water plant, and how will we adjust to pay back the debt on that water plant?
Remember 2 minutes.
I think I can do it in 2 minutes. I cut a ribbon and broke ground on a new water plant about 20 years ago, which we were the state of the art, and we were congratulated because we were on the cutting edge of what was happening in water control. In the process, chemicals became more and more used in the terms of the farming community, and we had an increased amount of chemicals that were flowing into our ponds, and as a result, testing, which was continually being made by the DNR and the EPA, indicated that the drinking concerns were no longer safe because the water was being brought into the ponds and then just pumped to our distribution center and, of course, then purified at that center. As a result, they indicated that water had to be taken from our deep wells. We have an aquifer which runs through the city, and we go down about 1,900 feet, and now we're on our third well, which we have to pump. In terms of we have to bring that that new process into use, and as a result, of course, the $7 million in terms of water is generally brought in by water revenue. So as a result, we have had to raise water rates. They are now have gone into effect in the last couple of months. We sold revenue bonds in order to finance the construction of that, and over an amount of years, the income that will come from the water department will pay for the increases and make our water safe for drinking. You know, it's a real concern with being in an agriculture community as to what happens to your drinking water to make it safe.
For all counties.
It was for everyone.
We'll go down the line.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
Do you need a question restated?
No, I don't. I would answer it this way. I can't think of any more important service that we deliver than the quality of water. And if through a series of developments and requirements that our government gives to us through the EPA and our own Department of Natural Resources, that we have to adjust to higher standards, then I think that's a good thing for our community, because what we should be concerned with at the end of the day is the quality of the product that we're delivering. And I think that the decision that the council made was a good decision to upgrade the facility. 20 years ago, the same question was probably asked, or more than 20 years ago, how are we going to pay for it? How is this going to impact us? And we've done it for that period of time. So I think that we've made the right choice, we've made the proper adjustment. The most important thing is we deliver a good quality product.
Caleb Flynn. I definitely think the new water treatment plant is needed. You know, there is a problem with the water, and it needs to be taken care of. And, you know, it's gonna have to be upgraded every once in a while. You know, that's something when new technology comes out, you have to grasp it, and, you know, you have to change, especially if there's a problem with the current way things are being handled. So I think it's a good decision, and you know, it's something that was definitely needed.
Thank you.
Jeff Hutton from the Fairfield Ledger. Along with the mayor's race on the ballot, the city of Fairfield is asking voters to consider a 7% city hotel motel tax. If that should be approved, where should the funds go, and who should handle the responsibility of delegating those funds? And this is for all.
Is there an order you want us to proceed in, Pat?
Well, I can start.
Let's start with Bob then.
We had the 7% local option on the ballot several years ago. Nobody picked up the ball. The council put it on the ballot, 7%. No one really felt that there was a need evidently at that time. Since then, I think there's an tremendously increased interest in tourism, of attracting people into our community, tying into a joint venture with what happens in Van Buren County and perhaps into also Henry County, or maybe all of southeast Iowa, so that we can figure out some way to bring some stopovers in this community and sort of piggyback over what some communities are already doing. Obviously, we do not have major tourism in the community, but with a 7% sales tax, you would generate about, at the moment, without any new motels or with existing facilities, around $80,000 to $90,000. That money I would like to see being used, it certainly would not be used as part of the overall city budget, but would be used partly for marketing to bring people into the community. The other rest of it would then be handled for some of those, maybe perhaps trails. Trails at the moment seem to be very viable. We have an opportunity with the DOT to advance our trail system. So I would like to see some of the money, the current money, go into some of the use of trails. With the water system changing, we have the ponds now being available for perhaps more recreational use, the 2 ponds and Walton Lake, and perhaps with a ad hoc committee of some kind, they can figure out some ways to use some of those funds. $80,000 doesn't go very far, but I think it's a start, and I think I would like to see this happen. I think the money is not that's being brought in the hotel is being generated by monies that otherwise we don't spend. My wife went to Boston last week, came back, and the motel bill was $159, but why did she cost $192 a night when she checked out? And because it's hotel, motel, and state taxes.
Caleb Flynn.
Caleb Flynn. So I think the hotel motel tax could be, good. I mean, I think it could be used to bring people into the city of Fairfield. But the thing is, we really need to look at what we're gonna do with that money to bring people here. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we could have something at the new Civic Center where people are gonna come to see that, or a weekend conference or something. But I think we need to have a concrete plan for the money, maybe a 5-year plan or something, just so we know really what we're gonna do with it, instead of just having this tax and trying every year to try to figure something out.
Ed Malloy.
I think the issue for me is that the cart is before the horse. I believe in the tax, and I will vote for it personally myself. I would like to have seen our city do some preparation and some planning for the use of the funds. A year ago, I believe we should have appointed some sort of a board or commission, either through the city or in concert with the Chamber of Commerce, that would have begun the process of thinking and planning how those funds can best be utilized to serve the hospitality industry that is going to be affected most. We do have opportunities to attract people to Fairfield. There is a lot that people can come for. We owe it to our community, though, to tell the voters where that money is going to be spent, how it is going to be spent. And I hope that if the tax does pass, that is the first thing that we do, and in probably short order, we come up with those items that will be approved by everyone.
Seth Johnson, KMCD Radio. My first question tonight is, I think some or both of you mentioned the revitalization of the downtown area. What will each of you do, this question is for each candidate, to revitalize the downtown area so it is appealing to, one, the businesses, two, the longtime citizens of the town, and three, any tourist that decides to come into town and shop in the downtown area?
I'd like to start with Caleb Flynn.
So this is something, to tell you the truth, I haven't thought that much about. You know, I've got a lot of other things that I've, you know, from my campaign, all of you know that, you know, I've been putting my attention towards. But to tell you the truth, I think a big part of how we could revitalize the downtown is probably just things like coffee bars, you know, just things where we need to draw businesses where, you know, people are going to go and hang out there, you know. As a kid, you know, that's something I see the need for, you know, and I see that, you know, that can really bring people in. You know, if kids are gonna come and drink coffee, they're also gonna go into the other stores and just check everything out. You know, so I think just a more, I don't know, just draw businesses like that. And as far as how to do that, I'm not for sure about that either, but, you know, that's some more thinking some other time.
Ed Malloy.
Our downtown square has always been a reflection of our community's identity, our community's health, our community's heritage. And I believe right now we have a fragmented identity. I think we have to gather groups of citizens from young people whose interests are in coffee bars or other alternative types of businesses. We have to bring in the needs that we have in retail. We have to look at it also in a very big picture sense as to what is it that is really going to bring life back into the square. It may not be the square itself. It may be that our neighborhoods that surround the square are deteriorating and we need to revitalize those. Maybe we need denser housing so that people are in a walking distance to our downtown square. I think that there are 1,000 good ideas out there. I think we have to make a resolve as a city and again bring all of the interest groups together, all people involved in this process, including the downtown Civic Center, which holds the most promise as a real good core anchor. Dovetail that with our tourism efforts, and I think we're going to come up with something that everyone's going to be proud of.
Bob Rasmussen.
There's no question that the Civic Center can be the catalyst in terms of what happens to the downtown area. I was around also when we redid our Central Park and we put underground watering. We also had a person named Gene Lamson and we had a person named Zilpha Russell who laid in front of the bulldozer the day that the bandstand was being torn down. So, you know, you have to face change and try to look at the things that are happening in a community when you make these kind of changes. There's all kinds of things, I think, happening in retail and retail business. Having had a retailer in my family for many years, those kinds of things have, with the invent of the automobile, of expensive automobiles, people travel all over the countryside to shop. And so I hope that by setting the Civic Center as something in terms of trade shows, of bringing people to the community and hopefully staying overnight here, and I think the overnight is the key to it, where they have to stay more than just shopping in the daytime, that maybe evolving around that in our Central Park area, we can again come back to some of those things we had, whether it's a soda fountain, whether it's boutiques or gift shops, those kind of things. But I do think that we need to take a hard look at it. It's not easy. If you need a mattress in Fairfield, you can't buy a mattress here. If I need a good pair of a good white shirt in Fairfield, you can't buy a white shirt in Fairfield. And I think that's a poor testimonial, that we really have to work to do that. The problem has been that some people have purchased the properties around the square, paid exorbitant prices for them in some instances, had to raise the rent too high so that the mom and pop operations with only 16 or 17,000 people in this community in a limited trade area simply can't make any money, and there's nobody that I know of is in business for the fun of it. They're in business to make some money, and they ought to make money, and it is going to be a real challenge, and that's why I'm anxious and I'm happy to see that the Civic Center idea is located downtown.
Time.
Thank you.
Jean Greco from the Ottumwa Courier. This is for all candidates. How could the demise of Barhydt Chapel and other historic buildings on the campus of Maharishi University of Management been averted should the city have gotten involved? And can the goals of a university and its host city coincide?
I'll start with Ed Malloy.
I think the issue really boiled down to the rights of private property and the cultural heritage interests of our community. And it was one that was probably a no-win situation, really, for both sides. I don't believe that there was any intention on the side of the university to insult a community by tearing down those structures. At the same time, I don't think that there was enough of an understanding of why that really did adhere to the mission of the university and respect for that mission. We have long been a community that has higher education as part of its heritage. And this is an institution that is different, and it is something that we've never experienced before. And we face challenges as a city when these kinds of things happen that are very, very unique, and they're very, very tough and very, very emotional. What could have been done? I'm not sure that anything could have been done given the timetable of some of the buildings. I think the efforts of the university to reach out to those who were interested in preserving Barhydt Chapel was one that was good, and I'm not sure that the response was strong enough for it to move forward at the time. But again, I would say if anything, I would have wished that there were more time to see if there were greater solutions.
Bob Rasmussen.
I think it's just another example of there's no communication between what happens at the university and what they're doing and what the rest of the community is doing. And by the time they have in their master plan the destruction of Barhydt Chapel, the Carnegie Library on the campus, all of these things are being removed because they're in private property before anyone else has a chance to move on them. The biggest problem, of course, lies in the fact that in a sense, we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. We want to have tourism, we want to have people come to see things. We have very few historical edifices around here, and probably the two most historical pieces we have in this community was the old Carnegie Library on the campus, the hen house, and the Barhydt Chapel, and obviously the university was not willing, because they have a right not to be willing, to keep those buildings there. I think it's unfortunate. Probably the youngest Parsons College grad is now probably 50 years old since the college closed in 1972. So there are fewer and fewer grads to have an emotional feeling about it, but I feel sorry for some who have nothing to show, even though they're a four-year graduate of a liberal arts school that had certainly has some credibility, that because they felt that those buildings should be taken down and square buildings with lots of windows should be put up instead, which will not have the same kind of attraction.
Caleb Flynn.
Well, the thing with the university is I'd really like to see a better relationship between the community and the university. First of all, there's a lot of kids there, and a lot of cool kids, a lot of cool people that come, and a lot of culture that comes from the community, or from the university. And I think the community and the university should try to embrace each other. I mean, they're a large part of the business here and a large part of the economy, so we just need to just try to live together and coexist happily, because they're it's not like it's them and us, it's like it's Fairfield. That's the way it should be anyway. It should just be like it's Fairfield, not a division.
All that clapping used your time.
Yeah, I'm done. Sorry, guys. I don't have anything else to say.
Jeff Hutton from the Fairfield Ledger. This is a question for all of the candidates. As a couple of you have stated, there is an economic slowdown both in the state and nationally. In terms of the next couple of years, what can the city do in terms of creative ways to make sure that the city is financially secure? Maybe there's one or two examples that you could cite for us as to what needs to happen again over this next term.
Let's start with Caleb.
Could definitely, increased tourism would help, and since this tax is on the ballot, if it passes, we're definitely going to have to implement a committee to see where that money is going to go. And hopefully that the money will be used wisely and tourism will come, more tourism will be, in Fairfield, and that would be one source. Also, just with the airport, if we can attract businesses, larger businesses, people who are going to be using a larger airport are going to be the type of businesses that we want to come to our community. They'll be employing a lot more people. They'll also bring a lot more money into our economy. So,
Bob Rasmussen.
Well, I think this is probably one of the key questions in the next year or so, because of the cash flow, the need probably for the community to still provide the same kind of services. Examples are road use tax, which has averaged about $90 per capita, is now going to predict around $77 to $78 per capita because of the less use of gasoline and the less amount of cars that are being purchasing gas at this time, which means you lose $100,000 to $150,000 in road use tax money, for instance. The other areas that I think we have to look at is the loss of valuation, perhaps with a slowdown in the sale of real estate, and the state is, of course, dependent upon valuations of the sale of property as to taxes. As a result, we have to watch if our valuation drops. Right now, we're at $12.90 per thousand valuation on your home after the rollback if you have residential property, and if that valuation goes down, obviously you'll not be paying as many taxes, but the city will not have as much money to provide those services. So I think those are real things that we're going to have to take a hard look at. You'd like to say that the personnel remain the same. We have not added any personnel to speak of over the last 10 years or so. The number of policemen, the number of people in the fire department, with the exception of a fire chief, I'm sorry. Recreation department pretty well placed for itself. People ask me about parking meters in terms of revenue. We generate about $35,000 in fines and about $30,000 in parking meter income right now. We can get rid of parking meters, but then that's $65,000 more. We do have a part-time meter reader that we have some overhead on, but basically we can get rid of a lot of services, but at the same time, something's got to give somewhere else. So I'm concerned about budgeting and what's going to happen to the money in the future.
We're in an economic slowdown, yet we still have a very healthy economy. We have several key manufacturers whose businesses are very strong and healthy. We have many small businesses that are very healthy as well. We have a lot of businesses that have weathered this first 9 months of a real economic slowdown and a recession. The good news is that if a company is able to weather those first stages of a slowdown, they're going to be able to ride it out and progress when the country pulls out. What we need is aggressive leadership to turn this around. We need to mind our budgets, absolutely, but at the same time, we need to recognize that what we have to offer here in Fairfield is completely unique. We're the envy of the state of Iowa. Today in this room, the Chamber of Commerce and the Fairfield Entrepreneurs Association hosted venture capitalists from California, from all of our venture interests in Iowa. This was a first-class conference. All the comments from people who had been to the state-sponsored comments were that this was better. This is the kind of environment where people understand that. They understand growth, they understand risk, and they understand opportunity. And we can, with the right leadership, pull all of those ingredients together and market our community as a place to live which has a great quality of life and a great business environment.
Seth Johnson again, KMCD Radio. With what each of you just said in mind, with the way the economy is uncertain, what would, this question is for each of the candidates, what would each of you do to entice new manufacturers to the Fairfield area, as well as nurturing the strong entrepreneurial spirit of the area?
I think it's my turn. Well, this isn't anything you pull out of the air. You really do have to work at it. You have to network, you have to identify those kinds of businesses in manufacturing or advanced manufacturing that are in a growth area. And I think once you've identified that growth area, you start to work to find candidates who are looking to relocate or and again, that interest in relocating is based on what kind of community you have. And we're very fortunate to have the kind of community where we have a good, strong workforce. We have qualified workforce at every level, blue collar through white collar. We also have great community amenities. And we're willing to put our shingle out and say, we're open for business. And I think if you send that kind of strong message with your entire community behind you, you will figure this out and you will find and attract those people who are looking for a good community.
Bob Rasmussen.
I can't disagree with Ed certainly on that, because economic development is a struggle at this point, not just in this community but everywhere, because of the slowdowns and the jobs that have no longer exist. But I think one of the things we've been able to do here and that we've tried to feed and help are our existing industries. We've been very fortunate that a number of them have been able to expand within their own operations, and as a result have brought a subsidiary type of companies to assist them. An example of molding company that comes to town because they're providing molds for Fairfield Aluminum, or another molding company that's in town doing very well because they're providing lots of molds to agri-industrial products. Dexter is doing pretty well. In terms of those type of heavy industry, we have lost a number of them, but we are also able to keep some of those industries here, and I think we have to keep working with those people. The City Council has been very willing to cooperate in terms of tax abatements as an enticement. We work with the state IDED, Department of Economic Development, in terms of developing tax increment financing districts. All of these kind of things that we have to be in competition with, because once a company decides they are interested in coming here and want to bring 30 or 40 employees, you can't believe the amount of competition across not just the state of Iowa but in the Midwest if they want to bring someone here. So we do have to put our best foot forward. We have to show that we do have those amenities that Ed discussed and that we have available here to try to attract new people in the community, because people are transient these days. It's ever changing, and we always have to add to our industry just to stay even with the game.
Caleb Flynn.
The thing, a good thing Fairfield has going for it is all the high-tech companies and also the training that that we have just at the university, and also soon to be the Beatbox with their large grant, which will be excellent for this community, and just that and the training that will be available. And I think that is definitely a good point, just that if we have trained people, and the resources for businesses, they're going to come here. So, and we just have to, really make our community look beautiful for them, them to be here.
Thank you.
Jean Greco from the Ottumwa Courier. Sort of a technical question, I guess. Regarding Jefferson County's new city, Vedic City, it could exercise its right to annex land around itself, and so can the city of Fairfield exercise its right to annex additional land. Whose rights would prevail should both cities wish to annex the same parcel? Would we be competing with Vedic City?
Start with Bob Rasmussen.
I would hope that you could compromise that type of thing. You know, there's a 2-mile limit, is what you're referring to. Vedic City is roughly 4 miles out of the city limits. Under fairly normal circumstances, you probably would agree to, we would perhaps agree that we would allow annexation 2 miles to another 2 miles toward our city, and by the same token, we would probably use the 2-mile limit to go out there. I don't think we would necessarily, or at least I would not encourage the council, and you know, it's easy for the mayor to say this. I have no really major say in this because the city council is going to be the one to decide in terms of some of these issues. But I would like to see trying to work together because they want to square off some of their land, and there's nothing wrong with that. But by the same token, I think we have to protect some of the rights within our close proximity of our city limits too.
Caleb Flynn.
There's just going to have to be a compromise. That's it. There's not much else to say. You know, we're just going to have to work together. I mean, Vedic City is going to be depending on Fairfield for certain services, and in the beginning, you know, maybe they'll expand and they'll, you know, get everything. They'll be self-sufficient, but at the beginning, they're going to be depending on Fairfield a little bit. So, you know, we're just going to have to compromise and figure out a middle ground of what's best for both of us.
Ed Malloy.
3 for compromise. I think on paper it's an intriguing issue because our extended extraterritorial zone goes right to the borders of Vedic City at this point in time. So there is a real issue. The master plan for that development prior to a city was for 1,000 acres, of which I think there's probably 200 or 300 that are developed and not fully developed at this point. And that's taken 10 years. I think there's a lot of work to do to fill out their master plan. I don't think that it's something that we're going to have to deal with in the next few years. Along with compromise, I think the other word I'd use would be cooperation. Basically, it is within our best interest to cooperate. Cities are doing it across Iowa and are asked to look more in terms of cooperation, cities and counties. And I think that's the spirit that we approach this. I don't see anything that is really imminent in this as an issue. I think it can be worked out reasonably, and if that's the intention of both governments, I'm sure that there'll be a good result.
Jeff Hutton from the Ledger. Mr. Malloy, this is primarily for you, but certainly Mayor Rasmussen and Mr. Flynn can respond if they'd like. Mr. Malloy, you've discussed in the past a proposal to create a strategic planning committee, as well as committees on tourism, youth, city beautification. How would you implement these committees? Who would make the appointments? And ultimately, who has the authority over the committee and any committee decisions that are made? Is it the mayor? Is it the city council? Is it a committee chairperson? I'd like you to comment on those.
Okay. Well, I believe that the committees and commissions, or rather the boards and commissions that I've referred to in my campaign would be mayoral appointed commissions and boards. They would be comprised of citizens who have background and expertise in that area. I believe that you know, coming into a situation where you're taking over anything new, whether it be you know, a company, a classroom, and in instance, government, you want to bring, new ideas. You want to bring fresh ideas, and you want to involve more people. You want to bring new ideas, and they're not just all of your ideas. So I think it's very healthy for our community to do that. I'll also address what I think is possibly behind that question, because I want to be very honest with everyone tonight. There's probably what's really the second part of that question is, Mr. Malloy, you're also a meditator, and we're concerned that you're going to pack those boards with meditators. That's one of those questions that I can say to you that I know better, and that I will work to make a balanced committees when those appointments are made. And for those people who choose not to believe my words, there's nothing else I can say. My intentions in forming those committees are for the betterment of Fairfield, and I don't feel that being one-sided is in Fairfield's best interest, so why bother?
Bob Rasmussen.
Most of the appointments that I have made, or that I've done, of course, I don't make very many appointments I make recommendations to the council on basically all things. And even if I have ad hoc committees, I pass by with the council usually to see that there is no reason why some of these people that I would like to recommend or that I could see would be willing to serve on these types of committees. I'm willing to go out and find some of them, but at the same time, I think the council needs to have some role as to who is going to serve on those committees. It's easier said than done sometimes to get people to serve anymore. Volunteerism, as I look back over the years, is not as prevalent as it was, and people are busy. 2 people in the community here in this family who both work. Their children are very involved in activities, and just to snap fingers and have people come who want to do it to make Fairfield a better place in which to live are not easy to find a lot of times. So that's why I think you have to look around with the councils and ad hoc committees to work on that. I think that ad hoc committees are good, but at the same time, I think the council needs to take some leadership in how they handle some of those kind of issues also.
Caleb Flynn, would you like to comment?
As far as committees go, it's definitely a great idea. If you're just the more activity or the more involvement you can have from the community, the better. The more input you can have is definitely the best way to go. So just as far as getting committees together, I think it's a great idea, and I guess that's it.
Seth Johnson, KMCD Radio.
And this will be the final question.
I'll try to make it quick. Each of you have talked tonight about bringing manufacturing into the area, and with recent resident transplants like myself, I'm new to the area. Do you feel that there are an adequate number of services available to new residents with regard to setting up for schools and realty issues? Do you feel that those services are adequate, or if not, what will each of you do to make it a bit easier for new residents to get some roots put down in the community?
Start with Caleb Flynn.
I think the services in Fairfield are good. I think they're definitely good services as far as realty, and the schools here are great. I went to FHS and went through the Jefferson County School District. I went to school in Lockridge when I was younger because I lived out in the country, and they're good schools. I feel like I got a good education through that. So definitely, as far as the school goes, I think the service is good. And as far as realty goes, I know there's several realtors in town. I don't know, I haven't really dealt with any of the realtors before, but I know there are several, and I'm sure Fairfield can handle it. We'll figure it out.
Bob Rasmussen.
I think the services here are are very good for a town of 10,000 population. I'm on an ambulance committee. We just bought a new box ambulance. To digress, I laid in the ambulance to be sure it was big enough for some of the people in there because I thought the last ambulance was too small. I just came from a reception for a new doctor that we have attracted into the community in the Medical Arts Clinic, which is also a positive thing here. I think that for the most part, we have a good hospital. I can't speak necessarily to the real estate, but it would appear to me that we certainly have enough real estate people in the community that someone could find something somewhere, perhaps if they were looking for that type of property. If you're talking about the availability of certain kinds of real estate, houses and rental property and those things, I think we've had a housing study several years ago, which we've implemented quite well and been able to attract some additional housing, both in for some new subdivisions and all. And so I think that housing is quite adequate here at the moment. Until we really realize that there's going to be a major impact in growth, it's very difficult to get a lot of additional services. Every time I've ever asked for a restaurant to come to the community or someone, I'm told it's always based on the traffic flow. Red Lobster won't come to Fairfield, Iowa because they've got to have a traffic flow base of 25,000 people. It's that kind of thing that I think we have to be realizing where our place is in the community, and I think we're very fortunate to have the number of services here. So I don't think that's one of our major governmental concerns.
Ed Malloy.
I want to answer your question a different way. I think maybe we do have some issues as far as our hospitality of new people moving into our city and possibly not really getting the kind of attention and service that they need to orient themselves to the community. And there's no finger to point. We're a small, very comfortable community, and people live their lives and go about their business. And sometimes in that process, we overlook people who can make an important contribution to our community. I met our new Ledger reporter today for the first time, Leah Kind, and after we introduced ourselves, I asked her how long she'd been here, and she said 2 months. I said, how's it going? Are you making friends? I mean, I think there's a real issue there, and there's probably always more that we can do to be more welcoming, to extend that welcome mat. We maybe tend to do it for one level of society. I think in the introduction of a new doctor to our community is something that's very important, very precious to us, and we extend ourselves in that way. But possibly we should look through all of the different service-giving areas, our schools, our Chamber of Commerce, our city, and find ways to maybe address that in a more complete way.
Thank you.
Now, each of you are going to have 3 minutes to make a closing comment, and I'd like to start with Bob Rasmussen.
Sure. I would like to close by saying that I'm very proud of Fairfield, and I've put 35 years of elected service into this community, and I've only done it because I liked it. I thought I could make this a better place in which to live, and I look back, I think maybe I have done that. But I think the thing I'm most proud of, and I will use my own family as an example. I have 2 children. Both of them went through the Fairfield school system. Both of them have outstanding jobs now, not necessarily in Fairfield, but they've done very well. They're happily married. I would say they're a very level-headed type of individuals who can adjust no matter where the kinds of circumstances they've been thrown into. And I think that that's the kind of quality of life that we're always looking for. I'm proud of the law enforcement and the safety that we've been able to provide for our people here. Sure, we have stolen bicycles and we have things that get reported to the police, but we don't have major crime in this community. And it's not because we haven't tried to prevent it. It's because we have people dedicated to work for this community to make it a better place in which to live. And I guess the final thing I would like to say is that no matter what happens in this election, and I hope everybody comes out and votes, but I am so proud of the dedication of the staff of this city and what they've done over these years. We have a lot of 15, 20, and 25-year employees who have worked with me and have pulled together because they've they too thought this was a damn good place to live. And they didn't do it because they thought that they were making big money. They did it because they thought that Fairfield had something to offer and that they wanted to give it back to the community. So when I look at the staff people and I see a few of them sitting here who are willing to continue to work for whomever comes into this government, I want to say thank you to them too. So finally, I just want to say that Tuesday is vote day, November 6th, and I hope everybody at least exercises that option and goes to the polls and votes their choice. Thank you.
Caleb Flynn.
I want to say thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this. You know, this has been a great time for me just to come out and get involved and talk to, you know, both, you know, everybody at and Bob, and just, it's been great. And I love Fairfield. I've been here my entire life. I wasn't born here, but I've lived in the area my entire life, and it's a great place to live, and I want it to continue being that way, and I want to see a few things change, but for the most part, this place is beautiful, and the people here are beautiful, and you know, it's a great place to be.
Ed Malloy.
Ditto on pride. Fairfield is a great source of pride for me. I'm not a native, but I chose to live in Fairfield, and now my children are natives, Kelly and Justin. I'm proud of our city's heritage, proud of the people who make our community work, and proud of the reputation that we enjoy around the state of Iowa as being a progressive community. Inside, though, I know we can be better, that we can be stronger and more united. But inside, I know that we can only accomplish this with a change of leadership. This election is not about the good or bad of where we've been in the past. It is about looking forward and envisioning what we can accomplish in the future. As I said in my opening statement, we are at a crossroads. The choice will be made on Tuesday by the voters, and we will all go on with our lives. But I ask you to think about the choice, to think about what's at stake, to think about what opportunities we have to build a stronger city. And I ask for your support now, and most importantly, after the election. I'd like to thank the candidates for sharing this evening in the Chamber of Commerce.
And the Chamber would like to thank you all for being here. Thank the members of the press, the board asking the questions. Again, thank you very much. And the candidates, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good job, gentlemen.